Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Miss Ming again. This video is part of the Back to School series. Comment down below if you're a college student, graduate students, high school students, and also what your major are so that we can build a community of support. Welcome back to Miss Ming's channel. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and also ring the bell to join our family. My goal is to grow 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Your support means the world to me. Alright, in this video I want to talk about how I take notes and how I organize my notes as a PhD candidate. I am a PhD candidate in the field of education, so as a teacher I love studying and I love taking notes. Alright, let's get started. The first tip is to get yourself a binder and also a 3-hole puncher. I know it's so typical for teachers to use binders and put materials in the binders, but as a student it is so helpful that you keep all of the materials that your teachers give so that you can reuse them when you study for exams or maybe use in the future. I apologize that I cannot show you what's in my binder because it contains a lot of student information, but generally speaking, you want to include some sort of schedule or syllabus. I love to print out my personal schedules or lesson plan templates from the website Canvas. It is completely free and you can print it in school in color. The next thing I like to include in my binder is some sort of divider. You don't have to buy the specific divider like I do. I actually got this from my friends, but you can just use some colored papers and then you can use some tapes to get yourself a tag. You can also buy the ones that have a pouch so you can put some materials inside this little container so that you can carry them easily with you every day. I put all of my materials in one binder so I don't have to carry multiples with me every day. Even if you're not a student, I think this method is generally really great to organize any documents or paperwork that you need to keep inside of the household so you don't lose them. Other than the binder, I highly recommend having a loose leaf notebook. Honestly, I had to Google it to know the proper name of this. So basically, it is a notebook where you can actually change the inserts, the filler papers, so that you can include some sort of calendar on the top. And in my notebook, as you can see, I have some calendars, to-do list, and my regular notebook inserts. This type of notebook is really great because you can change the sequence of the pages, and it is great to take in class notes because you only need one notebook for all subjects. You can later organize them together. Honestly, I didn't think about using this type of notebook until the very last year of my studies. I wish I knew earlier because I used to label and put tags on my notebooks on the side. Generally speaking, I don't like to have different notebooks for different subjects just because I don't like to carry 3 to 5 notebooks in my backpack for my different courses. Also, I don't want to lose them because it is very hard to keep track of all the notebooks if you have too many, if you know what I mean. Alright, let's get started with the specific note-taking strategies. In my studies, I usually do the readings before going to classes. I know sometimes I'm not really on top of the readings, but generally speaking, either I study really hard reading the books before going to the class, or sometimes even if I don't have time, I would just skim through the titles and subtitles and the main idea of the things I'm going to learn before going to classes. So now the notes that you're looking at are actually my reading notes. As you can see that my reading notes are not copying anything. It's basically some bullet points and the main idea of each different sections. And at the very top of the page, I put down which book this note is from, and also after each main idea, I put down the page number. So in the future, if I cannot remember exactly what I'm talking about in my notes, I could go back to the original reading. To really remember and understand something, you do have to read things several times. So don't feel bad if you don't remember anything after you read, because you can use your notes as your guiding outline, and later you can go back and read the specific things that you didn't understand or you didn't remember. Personally, I went through a lot of notebooks during my studies, my master's studies, my PhD studies, and I don't even have the undergrad notes because it was like another life ago. Alright, so let's flip through the notebooks. I'll show you guys some tips and tricks that I use when taking notes and studying. Alright, now you're looking at my very first notebook in my PhD studies. In this notebook, it includes everything I took in my very first semester. This one is cognition and bilingualism. Basically, as you can see, I have different colored pens and I also have highlights. Before the class, I did my reading notes in black pens, and I actually reread my own notes and also highlighted the important things that I want to pay attention to later in the lecture. Also in different colors, I also made connections between different concepts. Sometimes when I have questions, I will write down my questions or put a question mark on the side of a concept. So this is a great way to use different colors to represent different understandings, connections, questions, key terms, and everything in your own notes. And also make sure that if you have any questions, don't forget to write them so you can ask them later in class. Another great tip to taking reading notes is to draw concept maps. Getting a doctoral degree in philosophy means that I get to learn the most complicated, abstract concepts, either in learning or education, cognition, cultural, ethnological theories. I don't think I'm that smart, so I don't always immediately get a new concept and the relationships between the concepts. That's why it is very important for me to draw connections and also draw concept maps to represent my own understanding of the concept. Another trick that I use, this is going to be funny. Sometimes I read about critiques of different concepts between scholars. So I would just write a happy face or a sad face after certain critiques and different concepts. One time I read a critical review of an existing learning theory or teaching methods, and I remember the author was criticizing certain methods while saying the other methods are more beneficial in terms of developing communicative competence. So I just drew the happy face and the ones that he likes and the sad face and the ones that he didn't like. Again, this method really helps when you actually learn what are the theories that go together and what are the theories are actually contradicting or criticizing each other. It is very important to keep in mind that. Another thing is, if somebody is criticizing some concept, make sure that you note down why this person is criticizing it. Usually after taking reading notes about the assigned reading for a class, I left some empty pages so that I can take notes for things that I learned in class. Sometimes I would just take the notes on the side of my reading notes. If I had a question during reading and I got it answered, I would just write down the answer on the side. But generally speaking, during the class, do not write down everything that's on the PowerPoint. Don't, because if your professors are going to share their PowerPoint later, then why are you just copying everything from the PowerPoint? On the meantime, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't take any notes during the class. Generally speaking, I always download the PowerPoints before or after the class, and usually I would take notes in terms of what the professor said about certain concepts that's not on the PowerPoint. So usually it's either a clarification, explanation, or some examples. And also don't feel bad if your notes do not look exactly like the studygrams on Instagram or a lot of YouTubers. your notes is for yourself. I know I personally watch a lot of YouTubers that share their study tips and note-taking tips. I definitely love them. A lot of them have really nice handwritings and they color code every single thing. I love that. But at the same time, I just don't think it's necessary to compare your notes with the notes from these study gurus, because at the end, everybody learns differently, and sometimes it's just not very efficient to pay that much of attention in terms of your handwriting versus if you're just writing to learn, make sure that you write the bullet points and then highlight the key terms and key theories and later you want to revisit, and also write down the pages that this theory or concept is from the original reading, so later you can go back if you have any questions. Another thing I noticed is that the better I understood a topic or a concept, the less notes I actually made in my reading notes, because generally speaking, I love to outline what I read, and if I really understood a topic or concept, I just write down the keywords and then I put the page number just in case later I forget, versus sometimes if I felt like it's hard to grasp certain things, I love to paraphrase the definition and write down some examples for myself to understand it, and then also I can ask these examples later in class to discuss them and further my understandings. So I realized that the more notes I take, it means the less I understood something. So later I will ask the questions I have in class. Another thing is that when taking notes, I love to highlight the keywords or the categories or the most important things in my notes, and also use pens with different colors to write down what I understood about it, and also highlight certain things that I need to later revisit. Again, everybody has a different learning style, so it's always important to know which method works for you the best. So as you can see right here, teaching ESL, EFL, listening and speaking, I was the teaching assistant for this graduate level course. I've taken this class a long time ago when I was a master's student, but before I teach or before I TA for a class, I love to revisit the reading and textbook. So as you can see that I mainly write down the bullet points and the most important principles and things like that, and also some key terms and examples. See, this is the second time I learned this information, so you can tell that my notes are more brief. I highlighted more key terms and categories. They're basically ordered by the chapters and the topics. Again, diagrams and concept maps are great for organizing your thoughts, especially when you're taking notes to learn something new. Or sometimes you're reviewing for an exam, it's also great to make connections between all of the concepts, and also make sure that you have a very general idea that what you learned and what's the important things you learned in each class before preparing for an exam. Alright, so moving on to my second notebook in my PhD studies, as you can see, things went a little bit crazy. As you can see right here, I took some notes in terms of the research methods. I thought it was very important for me to draw the diagram to understand different types of mixed methods. I also used different colored pens to write down the definition, examples, and my own understandings of each research design. I know I'm such a dork. But it's very important to differentiate the definitions and whatever came from the reading and your own understanding, your own explanations, your own paraphrases of the same concept. Because sometimes you could have a misunderstanding of something, but if you thought it was the original definition by mistake, and then later in a test or when you apply something, you may actually, well, your story may not end well. Let's just go with that. So as you can see, my writing is a great representation of my mind. My mind was definitely more cluttered during that time, I guess. But it was also the year that I learned the most in terms of my research methods. This Lehman Winger situated learning book, it was so abstract, it was so hard to understand. I happened to do a presentation on half of the book, so I literally wrote down every single thing and make sure I put a page number so later I can go back. But yeah, and also you can see right here, I drew some concept maps based on my own understanding, and later I will put them into the slides and discuss them. Sometimes my understanding of the concept connections could be wrong or mistaken, so it's very important to discuss them with classmates. And for every example, I color-coded every single thing. On the back of the reading notes, I actually took notes of my statistics books. I didn't take statistic 1 because I have some quantitative background, but it's very important for me to review them, and there are things that I didn't learn earlier. So it's very important to be humble and reread everything that you think you understand, because every time I go back, I realize I misunderstood something or I didn't remember something and things like that. So just be humble, and yeah, but you can tell that like I didn't have to write down all the definitions. Mainly here it's a reminder of the key terms, equations, things I should be paying attention to and things like that. My favorite thing in my entire doctoral studies is statistics and quantitative research methods. I know I'm such a geek, but I love it. I love equations and I love these key terms, and sometimes when I felt really tired from reading all these abstract theories, reading about math actually is a therapeutic process for me. It's just, I don't know, it calms me down. Well, it's different to read about math and do math, so it doesn't mean that I love doing math. I just love reading about math and things related to statistics. Next notebook, as you can see, is way more organized because in my first year, the first 2 semesters of my studies, I was still trying to find the best way to take notes, the best way to do reading notes, the best way to combine my reading notes and my class notes. I know. I hope someone shared their tips and tricks earlier. So that's why I'm doing this video for you, hoping that my video can be helpful for you and later you don't have to go through the cluttered mind just like mine and then later find a great system later. Okay, so now the reading notes you're looking at is actually the notes that I did for a book that I reviewed and published my book review with my advisor. I love to take notes just so that I don't miss out anything when I did my review. I want to be responsible in terms of what I say in public in my book review. I don't know if people actually read it, really. And then now you're looking at some notes of a assessment book chapter. I read this book a long time ago when I was a master's student. In one summer, my research assistant assignment was to write questions for teaching certificate exam. Before we wrote questions, my supervisor asked me to reread the books and readings related to assessment so we can write items that are responsible and they don't have any biases, they have content clarity and everything. So I took my job very seriously, and then I took extensive notes, and I think it's really great for me because my research interest is in language assessment. So rereading these assessment concepts actually gave me a better understanding, and it really inspired a lot of my research ideas. But you can tell that I've read these readings before because my notes are way more organized with color codings. I have diagrams, I have outlines and everything. So I highly recommend that you read the readings first before you take any notes. You know what's important, what is the major outline, and how you are going to organize your notes, and how you can use your notes to guide your thoughts and understanding of the concept. And also I wrote down some other side notes for research ideas that the readings inspired me. And now you're looking at my quantitative research methods notes again. I love to read the articles first and then write down the notes for myself to organize my thoughts and understanding. Again, I love to use highlights to highlight important information in my notes. At this time, I had a really good system in terms of taking reading notes and in-class notes. So when I was taking the reading notes, I tried to leave some space, such as I skip a line between different categories. And later in class, when the professor mentioned about a research method or statistics analysis method, I used a different colored pen to write on the side in terms of what is important, what to notice, and things like that. Yeah. If you're still watching at this time, please drop a comment. I would love to meet another book nerd just like me. I get really excited looking at my own notes, especially when it comes to statistics. I know, right? Like, this is like my secret therapeutic treatment to myself. I know some people hate it, but if you're still watching, drop a comment. We are very alike. This is the last notebook that I use for my PhD studies. By the time I use this notebook, I have a great system of taking notes. I have a great system in terms of what colors to use and what colors to highlight. I have a great system in terms of how much space that I need to leave. Again, I should have used a loose leaf notebook so I don't have to tag everything and leave some empty pages in between different book chapters I read. Even the stationery items that I use, I had a great idea which one bleeds on my notebook pages, which one doesn't. In conclusion, in terms of effective ways to take notes in terms of studying, and especially with reading notes, do not copy everything from the original text except for the key terms. But even with the definitions, you want to synthesize, you want to summarize, you want to paraphrase. Try to explain things in your own words. Try to draw outlines and diagrams. And of course, if there's an equation that you need to put, of course, put down the equation and also put down the page number. Do not spend so much time just transferring information from one side to another. Your notes is actually your own understanding, your own reflection of something that you learned in the textbook, and try to organize and make connections in your notebooks. Taking notes doesn't mean copying. This is something I saw a lot of, even like a lot of study gurus on YouTube. They're like copying everything from the textbook. I was like, that is so inefficient in terms of studying. You want to take the least amount of work to maximize how much you study. Notes are a great representation of how your minds work. So everybody's note may look a little bit different. It doesn't have to look as great as the Instagram photos, as long as it works for you. Alright, that's it for today. I hope this video is helpful for you when you take notes during studying and reviewing. I hope by showing my journey of taking notes, reading notes, and class notes can inspire you and help you to prevent some of the mistakes that I did, and also help you to find your own way in terms of what's the best way for you to study efficiently. Alright, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and join the community, and also ring the bell so that you don't miss out any future content. Alright, thumbs up and subscribe. I will see you in my next video. Bye!